The heat shimmered off the asphalt like a living thing, distorting the horizon where Highway 47 met the bruised purple sky of dusk. Marcus "Reaper" Johnson killed the engine of his Harley-Davidson Fat Boy, and the sudden silence felt like a held breath. Around him, the rumble of 12 other bikes died in succession, a mechanical symphony ending on a minor chord. The Sunoco station squatted at the edge of nowhere, its fluorescent lights flickering against the encroaching darkness like a lighthouse warning ships away from rocky shores. Marcus pulled off his helmet, and his reflection stared back from the grimy gas station window, a black man in his early 40s, with silver threading through his close-cropped beard and eyes that had seen too much and forgotten too little. 3 minutes, he called out to his brothers. Fuel up, piss, and ride. We've got 200 miles before we hit the compound. Diego "Smoke" Cervantes swung off his bike with the easy grace of a man who'd been riding since before he could legally drive. You always were a romantic, Reaper. How about 5 minutes? Maybe grab some of those stale-ass sandwiches. 3, Marcus repeated, but his lips quirked. 15 years riding together had taught him that Diego would take 4.5 regardless of what he said. The Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club wasn't the largest club in Texas, but they were respected. They ran their business clean: security contracts, charity rides, the occasional debt collection that never quite crossed legal lines. Marcus had built something legitimate from the ashes of a misspent youth, and he protected it the way a man protects his soul. He was reaching for the fuel pump when he heard it. A scream. Not the startled yelp of surprise or the manufactured shriek of teenage drama. This was the raw, primal sound of terror, the kind that bypassed the brain and went straight to the spine, triggering instincts older than language. Marcus's hand moved to the Glock tucked at the small of his back before his conscious mind caught up. Around him, his brothers had frozen mid-motion, predators scenting blood on the wind. The scream came again, closer now, followed by the desperate slap of small feet on pavement. She burst around the corner of the convenience store like a frightened rabbit fleeing a wolf. A little black girl, maybe 9 or 10 years old, her cornrows half undone and trailing beads that clicked with each frantic step. Her yellow sundress was torn at the shoulder, and her knees were scraped raw. But it was her eyes that stopped Marcus cold, wide and white-rimmed with terror, darting between the bikers like a cornered animal searching for sanctuary. For a heartbeat, the world crystallized into perfect, terrible clarity, the child's ragged breathing, the way her small hands clutched a worn pink backpack to her chest, the single tear tracking through the dust on her cheek. Then she ran straight at him. Please. The word ripped from her throat. Please, please, please don't let him take me. She hit Marcus like a linebacker, small arms wrapping around his waist with desperate strength. Her whole body trembled, and he could feel her heart hammering against his ribs like a trapped bird. Marcus's hands hovered awkwardly over her shaking shoulders. Behind him, he heard Diego's sharp intake of breath and the metallic whisper of someone's hand moving to a weapon. Easy now, Marcus said, his voice dropping to the low, steady tone he used on spooked horses and frightened witnesses. Easy, little sister. Nobody's gonna. He'll kill me. She tilted her head back, and Marcus found himself looking into eyes that held far too much knowledge for a child. He'll kill me like he killed my mama. Please, you have to hide me. You have to. The black Escalade materialized out of the twilight like something conjured from a nightmare. It glided into the parking lot with predatory smoothness, its tinted windows reflecting the gas station's sickly fluorescent glow. The engine's purr was expensive, refined, utterly out of place in this nowhere corner of Texas. The girl's grip on Marcus tightened until her fingernails bit through his leather jacket. That's him, she whispered, and the absolute certainty in her voice made something cold slither down Marcus's spine. That's my daddy. Don't let him take me. Please. Please. The Escalade's door opened. The man who emerged was everything Marcus wasn't, tall where Marcus was compact, light-skinned where Marcus was dark, dressed in pressed khakis and a polo shirt that probably cost more than Marcus's bike payment. He moved with the controlled confidence of someone used to being obeyed, his hands raised in a gesture that was somehow both placating and commanding. But it was the badge clipped to his belt that made Marcus's stomach drop. Detective. Houston PD. Gentlemen. The man's voice was smooth as aged whiskey, reasonable and calm. I apologize for the disruption to your evening. I'm Detective James Carter, HPD. That's my daughter, Maya. She's not well. The words hung in the thick evening air like smoke. Marcus felt the girl, Maya, shake her head violently against his chest. No, he's lying, don't believe him, he's lying. Maya, baby. Detective Carter took a step forward, and despite the smile on his face, something about the movement made every one of Marcus's instincts scream danger. Come on now. These nice men don't want any trouble. Let's go home, and we can talk about this. About your mama. About the grief counseling Dr. Morrison recommended. You killed her. Maya's scream was raw enough to strip paint. I saw you. I saw you. Diego moved closer to Marcus's left shoulder, a subtle shift that put him in a better position if this went sideways. Around the pumps, the other wolves had arranged themselves in a loose semicircle, casual to the untrained eye, but Marcus recognized it for what it was, a defensive formation. Detective Carter's expression flickered, just for a microsecond, and in that brief moment, Marcus saw something cold and calculating move behind the man's eyes like a shark passing beneath still water. Then the mask was back, sad and concerned and perfectly reasonable. I understand this is confusing, Carter said, addressing Marcus directly now. My wife, Maya's mother, passed away 6 months ago. Home invasion. Maya was hiding in a closet when it happened. The trauma. He shook his head. The therapist warned us she might have episodes. Delusions. She's been missing since this afternoon. I've been searching for hours. It was a good story. A great story, actually. The kind that made perfect sense and would hold up under scrutiny. Marcus looked down at the child clutching his jacket. She stared back up at him, and in her eyes, he saw something he recognized from his own mirror on the worst nights, the absolute certainty that comes from staring at death and knowing its true face. Check my bag, Maya whispered, so quietly that only Marcus could hear. The hidden pocket. I have proof. I have proof of everything he's done. Maya. Carter's voice sharpened, just a fraction. Come here. Now. The girl's hands moved to the pink backpack, fumbling with a zipper Marcus hadn't noticed, cleverly concealed in the pattern of cartoon unicorns. Don't let him see it, she breathed. Whatever you do, don't. The flash of red and blue lights cut through the gathering darkness like knives. 3 police cruisers materialized from different directions, boxing in the gas station with the precision of a military operation. Doors opened. Hands rested on holsters. Detective Carter's smile widened, but it never reached his eyes. Gentlemen, he said softly, dangerously. You're now harboring a kidnapped minor. I suggest you hand her over before this situation becomes complicated. Maya made a sound, half sob, half growl, and thrust the backpack at Marcus. Their eyes met. In that moment, Marcus made the kind of split-second decision that defined a man's life. The kind that couldn't be unmade or taken back. The kind that drew lines in the sand and dared the world to cross them. He took the backpack. Diego, he said quietly. We got a problem. Yeah, boss. Diego's hand had drifted to his weapon. I'm seeing that. Detective Carter took another step forward, and the uniformed officers moved with him, hands now openly on their sidearms. Last chance, Carter said, and all pretense of the concerned father had evaporated like morning dew. What remained was something cold and hard and absolutely certain of its own power. Give me the girl and the bag. Walk away. Or I promise you, by this time tomorrow, every single one of you will be in a cell or in the ground. Maya trembled against Marcus's side. The backpack felt impossibly heavy in his hand, heavier than any burden he'd carried, including the guilt that had followed him home from Afghanistan, including the grief of his brother's death, including every wrong choice that had led him to this exact moment on this forgotten stretch of highway. Well, Marcus said finally, his voice steady despite the adrenaline singing through his veins. "Looks like we got ourselves a situation." He met Detective Carter's eyes across the distance. And he did not let go of the child. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 2. The thing about surrender, Marcus had learned in Afghanistan, was that it was never really about giving up. It was about choosing which battle to fight and when to fight it. So when Detective Carter's backup arrived, 6 more cruisers and a SWAT van that materialized like dark magic, Marcus made the calculation that kept soldiers alive and got them home. He let Maya go. The child's fingernails scraped against his leather jacket as the female officer pulled her away, leaving white marks in the aged hide like accusations. Maya's scream, "No, no, please, you promised," would haunt Marcus's dreams for weeks to come, but he kept his face blank, his hands visible, his body language carefully neutral. "The backpack," Detective Carter said, extending his hand with the confidence of a man who'd never been denied anything in his life. "That's my daughter's property." Funny thing about that. Diego stepped forward, positioning himself between Marcus and the detective with the casual grace that made people underestimate him right up until it was too late. "Pretty sure the little lady tossed it to Reaper here. Makes it his property now. Finders keepers and all that legal shit." A muscle twitched in Carter's jaw. "That bag contains my daughter's medications. Psychiatric medications that she needs." "Then you got a prescription, right?" Marcus interrupted, his voice mild. "And a pharmacy. You can get more. This bag's got sentimental value to me now. Kind of like a souvenir." The air crackled with tension thick enough to choke on. Behind Carter, the SWAT team had their rifles trained on the bikers with the cold efficiency of men who'd done this dance before. One wrong move, one itchy trigger finger, and the Sunoco station would become a crime scene that made the evening news. Carter's eyes narrowed, calculating. Around them, phone cameras had appeared, the gas station attendant filming through the window, a passing motorist recording from across the street. In the age of viral videos and police brutality hashtags, even corrupt cops had to be careful. "Fine." The word came out clipped, sharp as broken glass. "Keep the bag. But when my lawyers are done with you, that piece of leather you're so proud of will be the only thing you own that isn't seized by the court." He turned, Maya struggling in the female officer's grip, her tear-streaked face a mask of betrayal and terror. "I'm sorry," Marcus mouthed, though he knew she couldn't see it, knew it didn't matter, knew that sorry was the cheapest currency in the world and worth even less than the promises he'd just broken. The cruisers pulled away in formation, and the last thing Marcus saw was Maya's small hand pressed against the rear window, her palm white against the glass. Then they were gone, and the parking lot felt vast and empty as a graveyard. "Boss." Diego's voice was quiet. "Tell me we didn't just fuck up." Marcus looked down at the pink backpack in his hands, cheap canvas decorated with faded unicorns and the name Maya written in permanent marker. "We didn't fuck up," he said, and prayed to a god he'd stopped believing in years ago that it was true. "Let's ride." The Iron Wolves compound sat on 15 acres of scrubland 40 miles outside Houston, hidden behind a fence that looked decorative and wasn't. The clubhouse itself was a sprawling single-story building that had started life as a warehouse and had been transformed through sweat equity and stubbornness into something almost homey, if your definition of home included a full bar, a gun safe, and enough security cameras to make the NSA jealous. By the time they rolled through the gates, it was past midnight, and Marcus's hands ached from gripping the handlebars too tight for too long. "Church," he called out as the bikes lined up in formation. Now. The chapel, what they called the meeting room, was sacred space. Phones went in the bucket by the door. What was said in chapel stayed in chapel. It was one of the few rules Marcus enforced with absolute zero flexibility. 12 men arranged themselves around the scarred wooden table that bore the burns and stains of 1,000 meetings. These were his brothers, not by blood, but by choice. Diego, his VP, who'd taken a bullet meant for Marcus in Kandahar. Tiny, the club's enforcer, who stood 6'5" and whose nickname was ironic. Preacher, their chaplain, who actually had been a minister before the church decided his motorcycle club membership was incompatible with the pulpit. And Tanya. She stood in the doorway, arms crossed, her social worker's blazer discarded somewhere between the office and here. Tanya Rodriguez had a master's degree in social work, a temper that could strip paint, and the kind of moral compass that should have kept her far away from an outlaw motorcycle club. Instead, she'd been Marcus's partner, in every sense of the word, for 3 years. "Tell me," she said without preamble, "that you didn't just get involved in a custody dispute with a cop." "Can't tell you that." Marcus dumped the backpack on the table. "But I can tell you that cop is dirty, and that little girl is in danger." "Based on what?" "The word of a traumatized child having a breakdown at a gas station." "Based on this." He unzipped the backpack. The contents spilled across the table like evidence at a crime scene: a worn stuffed rabbit missing one eye, a paperback copy of The Lightning Thief with dog-eared pages, a half-empty box of crayons. The detritus of childhood. "There's supposed to be a hidden pocket," Diego said, running his hands along the bag's lining. She said, "Got it." The zipper was so cleverly concealed in the unicorn pattern that Marcus had missed it entirely. Diego worked it open with careful fingers, and the contents of the hidden pocket scattered across the table like accusations. A USB drive, its plastic casing stained dark brown with what could only be blood. Newspaper clippings, carefully folded, the headlines proclaiming Detective James Carter's commendations: Officer of the Year, Community Hero, the man who cleaned up the East Side. And a drawing. Marcus picked it up with hands that wanted to shake and wouldn't let themselves. Child's crayon on construction paper, the proportions all wrong, the colors too bright, the way kids drew before the world taught them that reality was supposed to be muted. A stick figure man standing over a stick figure woman. The woman lying down. Red crayon everywhere. In the corner, in careful block letters, "Daddy killed Mommy." I saw. The silence in the chapel was absolute. "Jesus Christ," preacher whispered, and coming from him, it sounded like an actual prayer. Tanya had gone pale, her professional mask cracking. She reached for the drawing, stopped herself, reached again. When she finally held it, her hands trembled. "This is..." "Marcus, this is evidence of trauma. Severe trauma. But it's also the kind of thing kids create when they're processing grief. When they're trying to understand something incomprehensible like a parent's murder." She looked up, and her eyes were bright with unshed tears. "It doesn't mean it's true." "Then let's find out what's true." Diego had the USB drive, turning it over in his fingers. "We got a computer in this place that isn't from 1995? "I'll get my laptop," Tiny rumbled. For a man whose nickname was a joke, he was surprisingly tech-savvy, a legacy of his previous career as an IT specialist before a felony conviction made corporate employment complicated. 10 minutes later, they huddled around Tiny's laptop like priests around an altar. The USB's contents appeared on screen, 3 folders, each protected by military-grade encryption. Shit. Tiny's massive fingers flew across the keyboard with surprising delicacy. This is serious security. Not the kind of thing you pick up at Best Buy. Someone knew what they were doing. "Can you crack it?" Marcus asked. "Eventually. But we're talking hours, maybe days." Tiny frowned at the screen. "Unless, hold on." His fingers danced across the keys, code scrolling past too fast for Marcus to follow. "There's a back door," Tiny muttered. "Someone left a, yeah. Yeah, okay. Clever girl." "What?" Diego leaned closer. "The password hint. It's hidden in the metadata." Tiny's grin was wolfish. 4 digits. Could be anything: birthdate, address, lucky number. "But I'm betting." He typed rapidly. "Yeah. Maya's age plus her mother's age. 10 and 32. 1032. The folder unlocked. Video files. Dozens of them. All with dates and timestamps. Tiny clicked the first one. The screen filled with the fisheye perspective of a body camera, the timestamp reading 2 years prior. Detective Carter's voice narrated the scene: approaching suspect vehicle. Requesting backup. Standard police procedure. Marcus had seen enough body cam footage to recognize the rhythm. Then Carter's hand moved into frame. And he was holding a baggie of white powder. "What the fuck?" Diego breathed. On screen, Carter glanced around, a quick, furtive movement, then opened the suspect's car door and shoved the baggie under the driver's seat. "Suspect appears to have narcotics in vehicle," Carter's voice continued smoothly, professionally. "Probable cause for search established." The video ended. They sat in stunned silence. "Play the next one," Marcus said, his voice hollow. The next video showed Carter planting a gun in a teenager's backpack. The one after that showed him doctoring evidence logs, his face visible in the reflection of a computer screen. Video after video, a catalog of corruption stretching back years. Planted evidence. False testimonies. Crime scenes staged with the precision of a movie set. How many people? Tanya's voice was barely a whisper. How many innocent people are in prison because of him? Marcus couldn't answer. The number was too high, the implications too vast. "There's one more file," Tiny said quietly. "Audio only. Dated 6 months ago." He clicked play. A woman's voice filled the chapel, terror making it thin and reedy. "James, please. Please, I won't tell anyone what you did. I swear. Just think about Maya. Think about our daughter. You should have thought about that before you went through my files." Detective Carter's voice was cold, clinical, utterly devoid of emotion. "You should have thought about a lot of things, Elizabeth." "James, no. No, please." The gunshot was shockingly loud in the confined space of the recording. Marcus flinched, unable to stop himself. Then Carter's voice again, calm as if ordering coffee. "This is Detective Carter. I need units at 4157 Maple Street. Home invasion in progress. Shots fired. Officer needs assistance." A pause. When he spoke again, his voice had changed, frantic, desperate, the performance of a lifetime. "Elizabeth. Baby, stay with me. Someone help. Please, someone help my wife." The recording ended. The silence that followed was the kind that came after bombs, after earthquakes, after the world fundamentally shifted on its axis and nothing would ever be the same again. Tanya had her hand over her mouth, tears streaming down her face. Diego's knuckles were white where he gripped the table. Preacher was praying, lips moving soundlessly. And Marcus. Marcus felt something break open inside his chest, a fury so pure and cold it was almost peaceful. "He killed her," Tanya whispered. "That son of a bitch murdered his wife and framed it as a home invasion. And Maya, oh God, Maya saw it. She's been living with her mother's murderer for 6 months. Not just her mother." Marcus's voice sounded strange to his own ears, distant and deadly calm. "Look at the dates on these videos. 2 years of framing people. Planting evidence. Destroying lives." He stood, the chair scraping against concrete. How many innocent men are rotting in prison right now because of him? How many families destroyed? How many lives ruined? He thought of his own brother, Darius. 23 years old when he'd been convicted on drug charges. 23 years old when he died in a prison riot, shivved in the shower by a gang member over some perceived disrespect. Darius, who'd sworn he was innocent. Darius, who'd been found with 3 kilos of cocaine in his car, cocaine he swore wasn't his. Darius, whose arresting officer had been. "No," Marcus breathed. "No, no, no." "Boss?" Diego stood. "What is it?" But Marcus was already moving, heading for his office, for the file cabinet where he kept the things he couldn't forget and couldn't bear to remember. He found Darius's case file in the bottom drawer, beneath a bottle of whiskey he'd never opened and a .45 he'd never fired. The arrest report was 3 years old, yellowed with age and creased from the number of times Marcus had read it, searching for something, anything, that would prove his brother's innocence. Arresting Officer, Detective James Carter, HPD. The file slipped from Marcus's fingers, pages scattering across the floor like accusations. Behind him, Diego appeared in the doorway. He looked at Marcus, at the scattered papers, and understanding crossed his face like a shadow. Darius, Diego said softly. He was innocent. Marcus's voice cracked. He was fucking innocent, and I didn't believe him. I thought he'd fallen back into the life. I thought. He couldn't finish. Couldn't say that he'd given up on his own brother. Couldn't admit that the last words he'd said to Darius, "You made your choices, now live with them," had haunted him every single day since the warden had called to say his brother was dead. Marcus. Tanya's hand on his shoulder. This isn't your fault. Isn't it? He turned to face her, to face all of them gathered in his office doorway. Carter destroyed my brother's life, and I let him do it. I believed the badge over my own blood. You didn't know, Preacher said gently. I should have. Marcus looked down at his hands, scarred, calloused, stained with ink and oil and too many mistakes to count. But I know now. And that little girl is still out there with a monster. So what do we do? Diego asked. Marcus met his VP's eyes. We get her out, he said. Whatever it takes. We get Maya away from him, and we make sure the whole world knows what James Carter really is. That's kidnapping, Tanya said quietly. Interfering with custody. You'll go to prison. Then I go to prison. Marcus's voice was steel. But that child doesn't spend one more night in that house. He picked up his phone, already planning, already calculating odds and angles and 100 ways this could go wrong. On the television mounted in the corner of the office, always on, always tuned to the news, a breaking story flashed across the screen. Missing child found safe. Detective James Carter of the Houston Police Department was reunited with his daughter this evening after a frightening ordeal. The 10-year-old girl, who suffers from trauma-related psychiatric issues following her mother's murder 6 months ago, was located at a gas station outside the city. Sources say she was being held by members of a motorcycle club. Marcus's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered, already knowing, dreading. Maya's voice, barely a whisper, you have 3 days. He's going to kill me in 3 days. On my birthday. Just like Mommy. Please. Please help me. The line went dead. Marcus looked at the men and women gathered around him, his family, his brothers, his reason for believing there was still good in a world that kept proving otherwise. 3 days, he said. And the war began. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 3. Dawn broke over the compound like a wound, all red and angry at the edges. Marcus hadn't slept. None of them had. The chapel table was littered with cold coffee cups, energy drink cans, and the kind of desperate plans that sounded brilliant at 3 a.m. and suicidal in the cold light of day. We can't go to the police, Tiny said for the 3rd time, his massive frame slumped in a chair that groaned under his weight. Carter's got the whole department in his pocket. We walk in there with this evidence, we'll be arrested before we finish the sentence. Internal Affairs, Preacher suggested, though his tone said he already knew it was hopeless. The FBI. Someone has to. Someone has to what? Diego interrupted, pacing the length of the room like a caged animal. Believe us? A motorcycle club with a dead man's word against a decorated detective? They'll bury this so fast our heads will spin, and that little girl will disappear into the system, if she's lucky. If she's not. He didn't finish. He didn't have to. Marcus stared at the evidence spread across the table, the USB drive, the drawings, the newspaper clippings. A child's desperate attempt to prove the unprovable, to make adults believe in monsters that wore badges and smiled for cameras. Tanya. He looked up at his partner, who'd been silent for the past hour, her social worker's mind working through angles the rest of them couldn't see. You've got legal access. Credentials. What can you do? She was already shaking her head before he finished. I can request a welfare check. It's standard procedure when there are concerns about a child's safety. But Marcus, you need to understand what happens next. A social worker shows up, asks some questions, does a visual inspection. If the child appears healthy, if the home is clean, if the parent is cooperative. He walks, Marcus finished flatly. He walks, Tanya confirmed. And then he knows someone's watching. Someone's asking questions. What do you think he does to Maya after that? The silence was suffocating. We do it anyway, Marcus said finally. We need to know where she is, what her situation is. We need eyes on her. Tanya nodded slowly, pulling out her phone. I'll make the call. But Marcus, after this, I could lose my license. My career. Everything I've built. Their eyes met across the table, and in that moment, Marcus saw everything that had drawn him to this woman, the steel spine wrapped in compassion, the refusal to look away from hard truths, the willingness to sacrifice everything for what was right. I know, he said softly. And I'm sorry. Don't be. Her smile was sad and fierce and utterly uncompromising. Some things are worth burning the world down for. She dialed. By noon, they knew it was hopeless. Tanya's welfare check request had been blocked by a restraining order, filed that morning by Detective Carter against all members of the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club, citing harassment, stalking, and threatening behavior toward his traumatized daughter. Son of a bitch moved fast, Diego snarled, reading the legal document on Tiny's laptop. How did he even know we'd try something? Because he's not stupid, Marcus said, the pieces clicking together with horrible clarity. He knows we have the USB drive. Knows what's on it. He's covering his bases, making us look like the bad guys before we can make a move. The news is running with it too. Tiny turned the laptop so they could see the local station's website. The headline made Marcus's stomach turn. Decorated detective seeks protection from biker gang targeting grieving daughter. There was a photo, Carter in his dress uniform, Maya tucked against his side, her face carefully angled away from the camera. The perfect image of a protective father shielding his child from dangerous criminals. They're eating it up, Preacher said quietly, scrolling through the comments section. Everyone's on his side. Leave this poor family alone. Bikers are scum. Someone should lock these thugs up before they hurt that little girl. Marcus felt the trap closing around them with the inexorable weight of a hydraulic press. Every move they made, Carter was 3 steps ahead. Every attempt to help Maya only tightened the noose. We're out of legal options, Tanya said, her voice hollow with defeat. I can't get near her. The welfare check was denied. Carter's got documentation from a therapist saying Maya has paranoid delusions and fixates on strangers as potential rescuers. He's built an airtight narrative. Then we stop playing by the rules, Diego said. Everyone turned to look at him. The VP leaned forward, elbows on the table, his expression carved from granite. We know where he lives. We know the layout, property records are public. We go in quiet, grab the girl, and disappear. By the time Carter figures out what happened, we're 3 states away with enough evidence to bury him. That's kidnapping, Tanya said flatly. That's rescue, Diego shot back. What's the alternative? We sit here with our thumbs up our asses while he kills her? Because that's what's happening, Tanya. That little girl called Marcus and said she has 3 days. Not 3 weeks, not 3 months. 3 days. 2 now, Tiny corrected quietly. It's past midnight. She called yesterday. The weight of that settled over the room like a funeral shroud. Marcus looked at each of them in turn, his brothers, his family, the people who'd followed him through hell and back without question. What he was about to ask of them would destroy everything they'd built. The compound, the legitimate business, the respect they'd earned in the community. All of it would burn. But Darius's face swam up in his memory, his baby brother, innocent and imprisoned, dead at 23 because Marcus hadn't believed him, hadn't fought for him, had let the system chew him up and spit him out. He wouldn't make that mistake again. "We need surveillance first," Marcus said, his voice steady despite the adrenaline singing through his veins. "I want eyes on that house 24/7. I want to know Carter's schedule, his security, where Maya is at all times. We get one shot at this. We don't fuck it up." Diego's grin was savage. "Now we're talking." Carter's house was in West University Place, one of those neighborhoods where the lawns were manicured by professionals and the HOA fined you for leaving your trash cans out past 7 a.m. A two-story colonial with black shutters and a BMW in the driveway, the American dream in brick and mortar. Marcus watched it through binoculars from a van parked 3 houses down, Tiny beside him monitoring the security cameras they'd hacked into using a vulnerability in Carter's home system. Turned out the detective's tech security was a lot weaker than his legal defenses. "Second floor, third window from the left," Tiny murmured, fingers flying across his keyboard. "That's her room. I've got it on screen now." Marcus shifted the binoculars. The window was dark, curtains drawn. But as he watched, a small hand appeared, pulling the curtain back just enough for a face to peek through. Maya. Even from this distance, even through the distortion of glass and magnification, he could see the fear in her eyes as she scanned the street below. Then she held up something, a piece of paper pressed against the window. "Zoom in," Marcus ordered, his heart hammering. Tiny manipulated the camera feed, enhancing the image until the words came into focus. "Help me. 3 days. Jesus," Tiny breathed. "She knows we're here. Or she's hoping we are." Marcus lowered the binoculars, his jaw tight. "She's been watching for us. Waiting." For 3 hours, they maintained surveillance. Carter came home at 6:17 p.m., still in his suit, carrying takeout from some expensive restaurant. He went inside. Lights came on throughout the house, kitchen, living room, his bedroom on the second floor. But Maya's room stayed dark. At 11:47 p.m., Carter's bedroom light went out. Marcus waited another hour, counting his heartbeats, running through the plan in his head until it was as smooth as a prayer. "Now," he said. Diego and Preacher had been waiting 2 blocks over, dressed in black, their faces covered. They moved like ghosts through the manicured neighborhood, avoiding the streetlights, slipping through shadows that shouldn't have been deep enough to hide a man but somehow were. Marcus watched through Tiny's camera feed as they approached the house from the back, where a privacy fence gave them cover. "Security system?" Diego's voice crackled through the earpiece. "On it," Tiny muttered, his fingers dancing across the keyboard. "And, we're blind. His cameras are down. You've got maybe 10 minutes before the security company calls to check. Power? Cutting it in 3, 2, 1. The house went dark. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barked. Marcus held his breath, waiting for lights to come on, for neighbors to investigate, for the plan to fall apart before it even began. Nothing. "We're going in," Diego said. Marcus watched the thermal imaging camera as 2 heat signatures approached the house. Diego had the lock picks, a skill learned in a misspent youth that had proven surprisingly useful over the years. 30 seconds later, the back door opened. "I'm heading up," Marcus said, already moving. He'd changed into black tactical gear, his face covered, a Glock tucked into his waistband. Not to use, never to use, not if he could help it, but as insurance against the worst-case scenario. He covered the 3 houses in a dead run, adrenaline making everything sharp and clear and slightly unreal. Over the fence, across the lawn, through the door that Diego held open. The house smelled like expensive cologne and Chinese takeout. Marcus moved through it with the muscle memory of 100 entries in Kandahar and Fallujah, his weapon up, his breathing controlled. The stairs didn't creak. Someone, Carter, probably, had built well. Second floor. Third door on the left. Marcus's hand closed around the doorknob. Unlocked. He eased it open, slipping inside Maya's room like smoke. The bed was empty. No, not empty, stuffed with pillows arranged to look like a sleeping child under the covers. An old trick, the kind kids used in movies. Diego, Marcus breathed into his mic, the room's clear. She's not. The lights slammed on with the force of a physical blow. Marcus spun, his hand going to his weapon, and found himself staring down the barrels of 6 police-issued Glocks. Detective Carter stood in the doorway, still in his pajamas, but his smile was sharp as a blade. Breaking and entering, he said conversationally. Attempted kidnapping. Assault on a police officer's home. Gentlemen, you just made my job incredibly easy. Behind him, uniformed officers filed in, their expressions hard and unforgiving. Marcus calculated the odds, 6 armed cops, his weapons still holstered, Diego and Preacher somewhere in the house, Tiny in the van. They'd walked straight into a trap. Where is she? Marcus demanded, his voice steady despite the rage burning in his chest. Where's Maya? My daughter is safe, Carter said, and the emphasis on my daughter was deliberate, possessive. No thanks to you and your criminal friends. Now, are you going to come quietly, or do we do this the hard way? Marcus's hand stayed near his weapon. Then Diego's voice crackled through the earpiece, urgent and shocked, Boss. Boss, we got her. Carter's smile faltered. She wasn't in her room, Diego continued, his voice tight. She was locked in the basement. There's a... Christ, Marcus, there's a cell down here. Chains. And boss, you need to see what else is down here. You need to see this right fucking now. The color drained from Carter's face. What did you say? One of the uniformed officers asked, confusion crossing his features. Detective, what's he talking about? What basement? But Carter was already moving, pushing past his backup, heading for the stairs. Marcus didn't think. He just moved, shoving past the startled officers, following Carter down the stairs, through the kitchen, to a door that should have led to a pantry but didn't. The basement stairs descended into darkness. At the bottom, Diego had his flashlight trained on a scene from a nightmare. A room, maybe 10 by 10, with concrete walls and a drain in the center of the floor. Chains bolted to the wall, the kind used for large dogs or livestock. A bare mattress in the corner, stained with God knew what. And Maya. She sat on the mattress, her knees pulled to her chest, her eyes huge and hollow in her small face. When she saw Marcus, she made a sound, half sob, half gasp, and tried to stand but couldn't. Her ankle was chained to the wall. Jesus Christ, one of the officers breathed behind Marcus. Detective, what the fuck is this? But Marcus wasn't looking at Carter. He was looking at the walls. They were covered in files. Hundreds of them. Case files, arrest reports, evidence logs. All in Carter's handwriting. All documenting years of planted evidence, falsified reports, framed suspects. And on the far wall, written in crayon in a child's careful printing. He's going to kill me on my birthday. Just like MOM. 6 days left. But that wasn't possible. Maya had said 3 days. That was yesterday. Which meant. The birthday isn't her birthday, Preacher said quietly, reading Marcus's expression. It's the anniversary of something else. Marcus turned to Carter, who stood frozen in the doorway, his face a mask of calculation as he tried to figure out how to spin this, how to explain the unexplainable. When did you take her? Marcus asked, his voice deadly calm. The real question, when did you take Maya? Because she's not your daughter, is she, Carter? She never was. And in that moment, looking at the detective's face, Marcus saw the truth. This was so much worse than a corrupt cop killing his wife. This was something else entirely. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 4. The escape had been chaos incarnate. The uniformed officers who'd accompanied Carter to his house had seen the basement, seen the chains, seen a 10-year-old girl shackled like an animal in a concrete cell. Whatever lies Carter had spun, whatever narrative he'd constructed, it shattered against the reality of that scene like glass against concrete. In the confusion, officers calling for backup, Carter screaming that it was all a setup, Diego cutting through Maya's chains with bolt cutters he'd somehow manifested, Marcus had made the kind of split-second decision that defined the rest of your life. He'd grabbed Maya and run. Now, 16 hours later, the clubhouse was on lockdown. Every entrance barricaded, every weapon loaded, every member of the Iron Wolves prepared for the siege they all knew was coming. Because the news wasn't reporting a corrupt detective with a torture chamber in his basement. The news was reporting a cop killer. Officer Michael Rodriguez, 34, and Officer Sarah Chin, 29, were found dead at the scene, the news anchor said, her face appropriately grave. Detective James Carter, a decorated 15-year veteran of the Houston Police Department, is in critical condition at Memorial Hermann Hospital. Authorities say members of the Iron Wolves motorcycle gang broke into Detective Carter's home, attacked the officers, and kidnapped Carter's 10-year-old daughter, Maya. The suspects are considered armed and extremely dangerous. Marcus muted the television, his jaw so tight it ached. "We didn't kill anyone," Preacher said quietly. He sat at the chapel table, his Bible open in front of him, though Marcus doubted he was actually reading it. "Those officers were alive when we left. Confused as hell, but alive. Carter killed them," Diego said flatly. He stood by the window, watching the road through a gap in the steel shutters they'd installed for exactly this kind of situation. Had to. They saw the basement. They would have testified against him. So he killed them and blamed us. 2 cops dead. Tiny's voice was hollow. They're going to come at us with everything. SWAT, ATF, probably the goddamn National Guard. Let them come, Marcus said, and meant it. The fury that had been building since he'd seen Maya's mother's murder recorded on that USB drive had crystallized into something cold and diamond hard. We've got evidence. We've got the files. We've got Maya. They can't bury this. Can't they? Tanya stood in the doorway, her face pale with exhaustion and stress. She'd been with Maya since they'd arrived, tending to the girl with a gentleness that made Marcus's chest ache. Marcus, Carter's already spinning this. By tomorrow, we'll be cop-killing kidnappers who fabricated evidence to justify our crimes. Who's going to believe us? Before Marcus could answer, a small voice spoke from behind Tanya. I will. Maya stood there, wrapped in a blanket 3 times too big for her, her cornrows messy from sleep. She looked impossibly small and impossibly old at the same time, a child who'd been forced to grow up too fast, to see too much, to carry burdens no one should have to bear. Baby, you should be resting, Tanya said gently. I can't rest. Maya's voice was steady, but her hands trembled where they clutched the blanket. Not while he's out there. Not while everyone thinks you're the bad guys. She looked at Marcus, and her eyes held the kind of determination that moved mountains. I need to tell you everything. All of it. The truth. Marcus pulled out a chair. Then sit, little sister. And start from the beginning. Maya's story came out in fits and starts, in the halting voice of a child trying to explain adult horrors with a child's vocabulary. Her real mother's name had been Elizabeth Santos. Not Elizabeth Carter, Santos. She'd been a paralegal working for the district attorney's office, handling case files, organizing evidence, living a quiet life with her daughter in a modest apartment in the Heights. She was so pretty, Maya whispered, her eyes distant with memory. She used to sing when she cooked. Really badly. Off-key. We'd laugh about it. Then Elizabeth had noticed something wrong with Detective Carter's cases. Arrests that didn't quite add up. Evidence that appeared too conveniently. Suspects who swore they were innocent but couldn't prove it. She started keeping notes, Maya said. Late at night, after she thought I was asleep. I'd hear her typing, printing things out. She made me promise not to tell anyone. Said it was important, but dangerous. Elizabeth had discovered that Carter was working with the Sinaloa cartel. Framing innocent people on drug charges while allowing the cartel's real operations to run undisturbed. Every falsified case meant another conviction, another notch on Carter's belt, another step up the ladder toward commendations and promotions. And another payment from the cartel. She tried to go to internal affairs, Maya continued, her voice getting smaller. But Carter found out. I don't know how. Maybe someone told him. Maybe he was watching her. But he came to our apartment one night, and he was different. Nice. Too nice. He brought flowers. He said he understood her concerns, that he wanted to help her, that they should talk privately. Maya's hands twisted in the blanket. Mama told me to go to my room. But I didn't. I hid in the hallway closet and watched through the crack in the door. The room was silent except for the hum of the television, muted but still flickering with images of the manhunt. He pulled out a gun, Maya whispered. And Mama started crying. She said she wouldn't tell anyone, that she'd forget everything she'd seen. She begged him to think about me. The same words they'd heard on the recording. The same desperate plea that haunted Marcus's dreams. He shot her. Right there in our living room. And then he... Maya's voice cracked. He made me come out of the closet. He knew I was there the whole time. He looked at me and he smiled, and he said, "Your mother had an accident. A bad man broke in and hurt her. You're going to come live with me now, and you're going to be a good girl and never talk about what you saw. Or the bad man will come back for you." Tanya had tears streaming down her face, her hand covering her mouth. He took me to his house that night. Told everyone that my mother had been killed in a home invasion, that I was traumatized and couldn't speak. He became my foster father. Then he adopted me. Maya's laugh was bitter, too old for her face. Everyone thought he was a hero. Saving the orphaned daughter of a murdered woman. They gave him awards. For 2 years, Maya had lived in that house. During the day, she was the grieving, troubled daughter. At night, when Carter thought she was asleep, she'd slip into his office and photograph documents, copy files, download evidence onto the USB drive she'd stolen from his desk. "I knew he'd kill me eventually," she said simply. "Just like Mama. So I collected proof. I thought if I had enough evidence, someone would believe me. Someone would stop him." "How many?" Marcus asked, his voice rough. "How many people did he frame?" 15 that I found files for," Maya said. "But there might be more." He was careful. He didn't keep everything at home. 15 innocent people. 15 lives destroyed. 15 families torn apart. Marcus thought of Darius and felt bile rise in his throat. "There's more," Maya said quietly. "The cartel, Carter was just one part of it. There are others. Police, judges, lawyers. All working together. Mama's notes had names, but I couldn't get to all of them before." She didn't finish. She didn't need to. "You're safe now," Marcus said, and wished it wasn't a lie. "We're going to make this right. We're going to." "Marcus." Tanya's voice was strange, strained. She was looking at one of the files spread across the table, her face gone white. "Marcus, you need to see this." He crossed to her, dread pooling in his stomach. The file was labeled with a case number and a name, Darius Johnson. Marcus's hands shook as he opened it. Inside were the arrest reports, the evidence logs, the court documents he'd read 100 times before. His brother, stopped for a broken taillight. His brother, with 3 kilos of cocaine discovered in his trunk. His brother, convicted despite his protests of innocence. But there were other papers in this file. Papers Marcus had never seen. Carter's handwritten notes, target acquired. Plant scheduled for November 15th. Payment on delivery. Photos of the evidence bags before they were found, the timestamp showing them in Carter's possession hours before the arrest. And a bank statement showing a deposit of $50,000 the day after Darius was convicted. "No," Marcus breathed. "No, no, no. Your brother," Tanya said gently. Carter framed him. It's all here. The whole setup. The room tilted. Marcus gripped the edge of the table, his vision narrowing to a tunnel. Darius. Baby brother. 23 years old with his whole life ahead of him. Darius, who'd turned his life around, who'd been working construction, who'd had a girlfriend and plans for the future. Darius, who'd sworn he was innocent. Darius, who Marcus hadn't believed. I told him he'd made his choices, Marcus said, the words torn from somewhere deep and bleeding. The last time I visited him in prison, he begged me to help him appeal. Said he'd been set up. And I told him, his voice broke. I told him to stop lying. To take responsibility. To man up. He looked at his hands, scarred, calloused, stained with the ink of his brother's file. He died thinking I didn't believe him. Died alone in that place because I trusted the system over my own blood. Marcus, Diego started. He was murdered, Marcus continued, his voice eerily calm. The official report said gang violence. A prison fight that got out of hand. But he wasn't in a gang. He kept his head down. He was trying to survive until his appeal came through. He looked up at Maya, at this child who'd been brave enough to collect evidence, to fight back, to refuse to let her mother's murder be forgotten. Everything Darius hadn't been able to do. Carter killed him, Marcus said flatly. Maybe not directly. But he put him in that cage. And when Darius started pushing for an appeal, started asking questions, Carter made sure he didn't live long enough to get answers. The rage was back, volcanic and barely contained. Boss, Tiny said from his position by the computer. We need to, Maya. Maya. Marcus spun. The girl had collapsed, sliding off her chair onto the floor. As Tanya rushed to her side, Maya coughed, a wet, rattling sound, and blood sprayed across the concrete floor. No. Tanya rolled her into recovery position, her nurse's training taking over. No, baby, stay with me. More blood. Too much blood. Marcus was on his knees beside them, his hands hovering uselessly. What's wrong with her? What's happening? Maya's eyes rolled back, her small body convulsing. Poison, Tanya gasped, her fingers on Maya's pulse. Oh God, Marcus, she's been poisoned. Look, she pointed to Maya's fingernails, which had a bluish tint. Cyanosis. And the blood, this is internal hemorrhaging. Something slow-acting, designed to look like natural illness. Carter, Diego snarled. That son of a bitch poisoned his own daughter as insurance. If she ever escaped, she'd die anyway. Can you treat it? Marcus demanded. Tanya, can you save her? I don't know what poison he used. Tanya's voice broke with frustration and fear. There are dozens of compounds that could cause these symptoms. Without knowing the specific toxin, I can't administer an antidote. I could make it worse, speed up the... She couldn't say it. How long? Marcus asked, his voice hollow. Based on the progression? Tanya looked at Maya's convulsing form, and tears spilled down her cheeks. 48 hours. Maybe less. Maya's eyes fluttered open, unfocused and glassy with pain. Her lips moved, blood bubbling at the corners of her mouth. What, baby? Tanya leaned close. What are you trying to say? He told me. Maya's whisper was barely audible. Before I ran, he said. You'll never make it 3 days without the antidote. No matter where you go, you'll come crawling back, begging. Her eyes found Marcus. Don't let him win. Then she went limp in Tanya's arms. She's seizing. Tanya shouted. Tiny, call 911. No, wait, we can't. They'll arrest us the second we show up at a hospital. Then what do we do? Preacher demanded. Marcus looked at the file spread across the table. Evidence of Carter's crimes. Proof that could bring down an entire network of corruption. Then he looked at Maya, dying in Tanya's arms because a monster had poisoned her as casually as most men took out the trash. The only person who knows what poison he used is Carter, Diego said quietly, reading Marcus's expression. And he's in a hospital under armed guard, surrounded by cops who think we killed 2 of their own. So we have a choice, Marcus said, his voice dead. We release the evidence, go public, send it to every news outlet, every federal agency. Burn Carter's empire to the ground. But that takes time. Days, maybe weeks before anyone acts on it. And Maya dies. Or? Tiny asked, though his tone said he already knew. Or we get to Carter. Force him to tell us what poison he used. Save Maya. Marcus met each of their eyes in turn. But that means breaking into a hospital, assaulting or killing cops, taking a wounded man hostage. It means proving everything Carter's been saying about us. It means we become the monsters everyone thinks we are. And the evidence? Tanya asked softly. Stays hidden until we save her. Which means Carter's people have time to disappear, to destroy records, to cover their tracks. We might save Maya and lose our only chance at justice. The silence stretched like pulled wire. On the floor, Maya coughed again, more blood staining her lips. 48 hours. A child's life. Or justice for 15 innocent people, for Darius, for every life Carter had destroyed. Marcus looked at his brother's file, then at Maya's convulsing form. Some choices weren't really choices at all. Gear up, he said. We're going to get that son of a bitch. And he's going to tell us what poison he used, even if I have to cut it out of him piece by piece. Diego's grin was savage. Now you're talking my language. But as they prepared for the most dangerous operation of their lives, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that they were playing exactly into Carter's hands. That somewhere in that hospital bed, Detective James Carter was smiling. Waiting for them to come. Because this was what he'd wanted all along. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 5. The burner phone felt like a loaded gun in Marcus's hand, heavy with consequence, deadly with potential. Maya had 36 hours left. Maybe less. She lay on a cot in the clubhouse's back room, her breathing shallow and labored, her skin taking on the gray pallor of approaching death. Tanya hadn't left her side, monitoring vitals with equipment they'd stolen from a veterinary clinic, pumping her full of fluids and general antivenoms that weren't working. Marcus stared at the phone, at the number he'd pulled from Carter's file, and made a deal with whatever god or devil was listening. He dialed. 3 rings. Then, I was wondering when you'd call. Carter's voice was smooth, almost amused, with an underlying rasp that suggested pain medication and injuries. How's my daughter? Dying, Marcus said flatly. Which you know, since you're the one who poisoned her. Poison is such an ugly word. I prefer insurance policy. Carter's chuckle turned into a cough. You cost me 2 officers, Reaper. Good men who didn't deserve to die. But they saw too much, understood too little. Casualties of war. You killed them yourself. Prove it. The smugness in Carter's voice made Marcus's trigger finger itch. Oh wait, you can't. Because every shred of evidence points to you and your gang of criminals. Breaking and entering. Kidnapping. Murder of police officers. You're looking at death row, my friend. Marcus forced his voice to stay level. I have the evidence. Everything Maya collected. Everything that proves what you've done. Had, Carter corrected. Past tense. By now, my people have accessed your clubhouse's network. Yes, we've been watching you, and corrupted or copied every digital file you have. That USB drive? Meaningless without the encryption key, which only Maya knows. And she's a little busy dying to share it. The bastard had thought of everything. But, Carter continued, his tone shifting to something almost conversational, I'm not an unreasonable man. You have something I want. I have something you want. Let's make a trade. The evidence for the antidote. See? You're smarter than you look in your mugshot. Carter paused, and Marcus heard muffled voices in the background. Nurses, maybe, or guards. There's an abandoned warehouse on Canal Street. Used to be a meatpacking plant. Lots of space, lots of exits. Very dramatic. Meet me there at midnight. Bring the evidence, all of it. I'll bring the antidote. How do I know you won't just kill us all? You don't. Carter's honesty was somehow more chilling than a lie. But what choice do you have? That little girl has, 30 hours left. Less if the poison accelerates. Tick-tock, Reaper. Tick-tock. The line went dead. Marcus stood there, the phone cooling against his palm, and felt the trap closing around him with perfect, inexorable precision. It's a setup, Diego said for the 5th time, pacing the chapel like a caged animal. He'll have the place surrounded. SWAT, snipers, probably the goddamn cavalry. We walk in there, we're dead. Probably, Marcus agreed. He was strapping on body armor, checking weapons, moving with the mechanical precision of a man who'd accepted his fate. But Maya dies for certain if we don't go. Then we don't go in blind. Tiny had maps spread across the table, satellite imagery of the warehouse, street views, architectural plans pulled from the city's database. The building has 4 entrances, a loading dock, and a skylight that's probably rusted through. We positioned shooters here, and here. No, Marcus interrupted. No shooters. We're not starting a war in the middle of Houston. Boss, they're going to shoot at us. Then we take cover. We retreat. We do whatever we have to do that doesn't involve turning Canal Street into a battlefield. Marcus looked at each of them, his brothers, his family, the men who'd followed him into hell before and would do it again. We're already cop killers in the public eye. We start shooting at police, even in self-defense, and we lose any chance of redemption. Any chance of the truth coming out. The truth? Diego's laugh was bitter. Marcus, the truth died the second Carter put 2 bullets in his own officers and blamed us. Nobody's going to believe us now. Maya will, Tanya said quietly from the doorway. She looked exhausted, worn down to the bone by stress and fear. If we save her, she'll testify. She's the only witness to her mother's murder. The only one who can prove Carter's corruption. If we save her, Preacher repeated softly. That's a big if. Marcus finished checking his Glock, chambered around, and looked at Tanya. You said you had connections. Doctors who could identify the poison. I reached out to Dr. Sarah Okonkwo at Hermon Hospital. Toxicologist, one of the best in the state. Tanya pulled out her phone, showing them a text conversation. I sent her Maya's symptoms, the progression timeline. She thinks it's a compound called VX derivative, a nerve agent variant that's been modified to act slowly. Only accessible to military and law enforcement. Can she treat it? Marcus asked. If she has the specific formulation, yes. But there are dozens of variations, and using the wrong antidote could kill Maya faster. Tanya's voice cracked. We need Carter to tell us exactly what he used. The molecular structure, the dosage, everything. Then that's what we get. Marcus stood, his armor settled, his weapons loaded. Diego, I want every member of the Iron Wolves at that warehouse. Not inside, surrounding it. Visible. I want Carter to see that if this goes bad, it goes bad for everyone. Diego's grin was savage. Now you're talking. I can have 50 brothers there within the hour. Tiny, you're on tech. I want eyes on everything, their communications, their positions, anything that gives us an edge. Marcus picked up the backpack containing Maya's evidence, copied 3 times now, stored in 3 separate locations, but Carter didn't need to know that. And Tanya? I'm going with you, she said, her tone brooking no argument. If Carter gives us the antidote formulation, I need to be there to verify it. To make sure he's not lying. Marcus wanted to argue, to keep her safe, to not drag the woman he loved into the line of fire. But he'd learned years ago that Tanya Rodriguez didn't need protecting, she needed trusting. Okay, he said simply. Let's go make a deal with the devil. The warehouse loomed against the night sky like a monument to decay, broken windows, rusted metal siding, the ghost of blood and death still clinging to its bones even though the last animal had been slaughtered there 30 years ago. Marcus rolled up on his Harley at 11:47 p.m., Tanya on the back, Diego flanking his left. Behind them, the rumble of 50 motorcycles filled the air like distant thunder. The iron wolves spread out in a semicircle around the warehouse's perimeter, not threatening, not aggressive, just present. A show of force that said, "You hurt us, we hurt you." Mutual assured destruction, biker style. The warehouse's main door stood open, light spilling from inside, harsh fluorescent that turned everything it touched sickly and pale. Marcus dismounted, helped Tanya down, and walked toward that light like a man approaching his own execution. Inside, the warehouse was a cavern of shadows and echoes. Old meat hooks still hung from ceiling rails, swaying slightly in the draft. The floor was stained concrete, dark with decades of blood that no amount of bleach could erase. Detective Carter stood in the center of the space, flanked by 20 SWAT officers in full tactical gear. He was in a wheelchair, his torso wrapped in bandages, and 4-pole attached to the chair. But his eyes were sharp, calculating, and utterly without mercy. "Dramatic entrance," Carter said, his voice amplified by the warehouse's acoustics. "I approve. Very sons of anarchy." "You got your people, I got mine," Marcus replied. He held up the backpack. "The evidence. All of it. USB drive, files, recordings. Everything Maya collected. Prove it." Marcus unzipped the bag, pulled out the USB drive. Blood-stained. Maya's mother's blood, I'm guessing. Along with encrypted files showing 2 years of your corruption. Want me to start listing names? Judge Patricia Morrison. District Attorney Kevin Huang. Police Chief Robert. Enough. Carter's smile never wavered. You've made your point. Now the antidote. He gestured, and one of the SWAT officers stepped forward with a small metal case. He opened it to reveal a vial of clear liquid and a syringe. VX-7 variant, Carter said conversationally. Highly modified nerve agent. Causes slow cellular breakdown, internal hemorrhaging, eventual organ failure. Quite elegant, really. Gives the victim time to reconsider their choices before it's too late. You poisoned a child, Tanya said, her voice shaking with rage. Your own daughter. Not my daughter, Carter corrected. Never was. But we'll get to that. He nodded to the SWAT officer, who closed the case. The trade is simple. Evidence for antidote. You walk away with the cure, I walk away with my insurance policy. Everyone lives to fight another day. And Maya? Marcus asked. Goes back with me, where she belongs. Carter's expression hardened. She's my ward, my legal responsibility. You'll be charged with kidnapping, but with good lawyers, which you can't afford, you might get 20 years instead of life. Could be worse. Marcus looked at the vial in the case, at Maya's only chance of survival. Then he looked at Carter, at the monster who'd killed his brother, who'd destroyed 15 innocent lives, who'd murdered his way to power and respectability. No deal, Marcus said. The SWAT team tensed, weapons rising. Carter's smile faded. Excuse me? You heard me. No deal. Marcus's voice was steady, certain. You think I'm stupid? You think I don't know that the second you have that evidence, Maya's dead anyway? That we're dead? That every loose end gets tied up nice and neat? Then the girl dies in, Carter checked his watch, 32 hours. Her blood's on your hands, Reaper. Her blood was on your hands the second you poisoned her. Marcus stepped forward, and 20 rifles tracked his movement. But here's what you didn't count on. We already released the evidence. Carter's face went white. You're lying. am I? Marcus pulled out his phone, showed Carter the screen. Every news outlet in Houston. The FBI. The DOJ. Internal Affairs. Hell, I even sent it to the cartel you've been working with, just to make sure everyone gets a copy. That evidence hit inboxes about 10 minutes ago. It was a bluff. A complete, desperate bluff. But Marcus sold it with every ounce of conviction he had. Carter's hands gripped the wheelchair's armrests. You just signed that girl's death warrant. Maybe. But at least she'll die free. Not in your basement. Not in chains. Marcus's voice dropped. And you'll go down with her. Everything you've built, everyone you've bought, it all burns. Today. For a long moment, no one moved. The warehouse held its breath, 50 bikers outside and 20 SWAT officers inside, all waiting for someone to make the first move. Then Carter laughed. It started as a chuckle and built into something manic, unhinged. Oh, Reaper. You poor, stupid bastard. You really think it matters? Judge Morrison? In my pocket. D.A. Huang? I have photos of him with a dead hooker that I personally staged. Police Chief Henderson? His daughter's drug habit is funded by evidence room skimming that I facilitated. Every single person who could bring me down is compromised. So go ahead, release your evidence. Watch it disappear into bureaucratic red tape. Watch it get lost, or contaminated, or ruled inadmissible. His smile was the kind that came before atrocities. I'm untouchable. And that little girl? She still dies. The only question is whether you get the antidote first. Marcus's fist clenched around the backpack strap. Carter gestured lazily, and the SWAT officer brought the case forward. Here's what you don't know, Reaper. Maya isn't Maya Santos. That's just the name on the adoption papers I filed after I killed her mother, my wife, Elizabeth, who was stupid enough to try to save a cartel informant's kid. The words hit like physical blows. The girl's real name is Isabella Reyes. Her father was Ricardo Reyes, a Sinaloa cartel accountant who stole $50 million and disappeared into witness protection 10 years ago. The feds gave him a new identity, a new life. Made him a paralegal. Gave him a daughter to protect. Carter's eyes glittered with malice. I was his handler. I was supposed to keep him safe. Instead, I told the cartel exactly where to find him, for a price. They killed Ricardo and his wife. They wanted to kill the daughter too, but I had a better idea. I took her. Told the cartel she knew where Daddy hid the money. They've been paying me for 10 years to keep her alive, to break her, to make her tell me where those $50 million are hidden. The warehouse spun. Marcus grabbed the nearest meat hook to steady himself. So you see, Carter continued, her birthday isn't a birthday. It's the anniversary of her adoption, the day I took her from her parents' corpses and made her mine. 10 years ago tomorrow. And the cartel? They're done waiting. They want their money, and they want that girl. If you expose me, you expose her. They'll hunt her down, torture her in ways that make my basement look like a daycare, and kill her when she finally admits she doesn't know anything. He leaned forward in his wheelchair, his face a mask of triumph. So what's it worth, Reaper? Her life? Or your justice? Carter pulled the vial from the case and threw it. Marcus caught it reflexively, the glass warm against his palm. That's the real antidote, Carter said. Molecular structure, dosage instructions, everything your doctor needs. Save the girl. Or don't. But know this, the moment you walk out that door with her alive, the cartel gets a call. And they'll never stop hunting. Marcus looked at the vial, at Maya's salvation and damnation wrapped in a single container. Then Tanya grabbed his arm. Marcus. We have incoming. The sound hit a second later, vehicles, multiple, moving fast. Black SUVs with tinted windows crashed through the warehouse's loading dock door, through the side entrance, boxing everyone in. Men poured out, heavily armed, faces hidden behind masks. Not cops. Not SWAT. Cartel. Shit, Carter breathed, his confidence evaporating. They weren't supposed to move until. Gunfire erupted, and the warehouse exploded into chaos. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 6. The first volley of gunfire shredded the warehouse's relative peace like paper. Marcus hit the ground, pulling Tanya down with him as bullets punched through rusted metal and shattered what remained of the windows. Around them, SWAT officers scattered for cover, their training kicking in even as confusion reigned. These weren't the bikers they'd expected to fight. The cartel sicarios moved with military precision, a dozen men in tactical gear that rivaled anything law enforcement had. They fanned out in a coordinated assault pattern, their weapons, AR-15s, MP5s, one man with what looked like a goddamn belt-fed machine gun, speaking a universal language of violence. Fall back. Carter screamed from his wheelchair, his carefully constructed control evaporating. Fall back to the. An RPG round hit the warehouse's north wall. The explosion was deafening, a physical force that picked Marcus up and threw him 6 feet. He landed hard, ears ringing, tasting blood and concrete dust. Through the smoke and chaos, he saw bodies, SWAT officers down, not moving, their tactical gear no match for military-grade ordnance. Marcus. Tanya's voice, distant through the ringing in his ears. She was crawling toward him, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead. We have to move. Outside, the night erupted with the roar of motorcycle engines. The Iron Wolves weren't running. They were charging. 50 bikers descended on the warehouse like a leather-clad cavalry, their bikes weaving between the cartel's SUVs, some firing handguns with one hand while steering with the other, a maneuver that was as stupid as it was effective in creating chaos. Northeast corner. Diego's voice crackled over Marcus's earpiece, barely audible over the gunfire. Boss, there's a service tunnel, old meatpacking drainage system. Get your ass over here. Marcus grabbed Tanya's hand and ran in a crouch, using the hanging meat hooks and old machinery for cover. Bullets sparked off metal around them, a deadly percussion that accompanied their desperate flight. A cartel sicario appeared in front of them, his weapon rising. Tiny materialized from nowhere, 300 pounds of biker moving with impossible speed. He hit the sicario like a freight train, and both men went down in a tangle of limbs. There was a sickening crack, and only Tiny got up. Move, he bellowed, blood streaming from his nose. I got your 6. They reached the northeast corner where Diego had found a rusted grate in the floor, half hidden under decades of grime. He'd already pried it open, revealing a dark tunnel that smelled of rot and worse things. Maya, Marcus gasped. Where's Maya? At the clubhouse, still dying, Diego said grimly. Which is where I need to be, with that antidote you're holding. Give it here. Marcus looked down at his hand. He'd somehow held onto the vial through the explosion, through the chaos. It glowed under the warehouse's failing lights like a promise or a curse. He handed it to Diego. Get it to her. Whatever it takes. What about you? I'm ending this. Marcus pulled his Glock, checked the magazine. Carter set this up. Look at him, he pointed through the smoke to where the detective sat in his wheelchair, not trying to escape, not panicking. Just watching with the expression of a man whose plan was unfolding exactly as designed. He tipped off the cartel. Let them know where we'd be, when we'd be here. He's going to let them kill everyone, us, his own people, and walk away clean. Then we kill him first, Diego said flatly. No. We expose him. We make sure the whole world knows what he is. Marcus met his VP's eyes. But first, you save that little girl. Swear it, brother. Diego's jaw tightened. On my life. He disappeared into the tunnel, and Marcus turned back to the war zone. Diego emerged from the tunnel 3 blocks away, in the basement of an abandoned building that had probably been part of the meatpacking plant's distribution network. He kicked open a door that led to an alley, and ran straight into Preacher, who'd brought Diego's bike around. Maya, Preacher asked. Still at the clubhouse. I need to. Diego stopped, his blood going cold. Fuck. Fuck. If Carter tipped off the cartel about the warehouse, he knows where the clubhouse is too. They looked at each other, the same horrible realization dawning. Diego was already on his bike, the engine screaming to life. Get everyone you can back there. Now. He didn't wait for a response. The Harley leaped forward, and Diego pushed it harder than he'd ever pushed any machine, the speedometer climbing past 80, past 90, the city blurring around him. His phone buzzed. Tiny's number. Talk to me, Diego barked into his Bluetooth. They hit the clubhouse 10 minutes ago. Tiny's voice was ragged with exhaustion and fury. We held them off, but Diego, they got Maya. They grabbed her and ran. I'm tracking their vehicle now, but brother, I'm sorry, I'm so fucking sorry. Where are they headed? East on I-10, moving fast. Black Escalade, plate number. Tiny rattled off the numbers. Diego, she's got maybe an hour before the poison. I know. Diego changed direction, cutting across 4 lanes of traffic and earning a chorus of horns. Send me their location. I'm going to get her back. The chase lasted 37 minutes, 37 minutes of Diego's life compressed into pure adrenaline and focus. The Escalade was fast, but it was heavy. Diego's bike was faster, more maneuverable, able to slip between cars where the SUV had to brake and swerve. He caught up to them on a stretch of highway near the medical center, the Escalade's taillights close enough to touch. One of the Sicarios leaned out the window, weapon raised. Diego twisted the throttle and dropped back, letting the bullets tear through the space where he'd been. Then he surged forward on the vehicle's passenger side, pulled his .45, and fired 3 rounds into the front tire. The Escalade swerved violently, clipped a sedan, and went into a spin. It hit the concrete barrier and flipped, rolling twice before landing on its roof. Diego was off his bike before it fully stopped, his weapon up, advancing on the wreckage. 2 Sicarios were dead, their necks broken in the crash. A third was crawling from the wreckage, blood streaming from a head wound. And in the back seat, still strapped in by her seatbelt, hanging upside down, Maya. She was unconscious, blood trickling from her nose, her skin gray as ash. But she was breathing. Diego cut her free, caught her as she fell, and ran back to his bike. He couldn't take her on a motorcycle, not in this condition, but there, a woman getting out of her car, staring at the crash in shock. I need your vehicle, Diego said, his gun not quite pointed at her but not quite pointed away either. The woman, to her credit, just tossed him the keys. There's a hospital 2 blocks that way. Diego laid Maya in the back seat, pressed the vial of antidote into her limp hand so he wouldn't lose it, and drove. Hermann Hospital's emergency room had probably seen a lot in its time, but Diego doubted they'd ever seen a blood-covered biker crash a stolen Honda Civic through the ambulance bay doors and stumble out carrying a dying child. I need a doctor, he roared. Now. She's been poisoned, I have the antidote, someone help her. Medical staff swarmed them, and Maya was taken from Diego's arms onto a gurney. A doctor, young, competent-looking, her name tag reading Dr. Okonkwo, grabbed the vial. VX7 derivative, Diego gasped. The formulation's on the label. She's got less than an hour. We've got her. Dr. Okonkwo was already barking orders, the gurney rushing toward a trauma bay. Sir, you need to stay here. The police. The police are why she's dying, Diego said, but the doors had already swung shut, and Maya was gone. He stood there in the ER, blood drying on his hands, some his, some Maya's, some from the Sicarios, and felt the adrenaline drain away, leaving only exhaustion. A nurse approached, clipboard in hand. Young, nervous, her eyes darting to the security guards who were eyeing Diego with undisguised suspicion. Sir, I need to get some information. Just save her, Diego interrupted. That's all that matters. The nurse nodded, made a note, then leaned closer and lowered her voice. There's something you should know. Detective Carter called ahead about 30 minutes ago. He said a kidnapping victim might be brought here, a 10-year-old black girl. He gave us instructions to sedate her and hold her until he arrives. Diego's blood turned to ice. What? We're supposed to keep her here. For her own safety. The nurse's expression was troubled. But sir. I saw what you did out there. You saved that little girl. And the way Carter talked, the things he said about managing the situation, something doesn't feel right. It's not, Diego said urgently. Carter's the one who poisoned her. He's corrupt, he's dangerous, and if he gets his hands on Maya again, she's dead. You have to believe me. The nurse studied his face, doing the same calculation medical professionals probably did every day. Who to trust, who to believe, what choice would she regret more? Trauma Bay 3, she said finally. They just started the antidote. She'll be sedated for the procedure anyway. You've got maybe 10 minutes before Carter arrives with backup. Thank you, Diego breathed. He moved through the ER like a man who belonged there, projecting confidence, avoiding eye contact with security. Trauma Bay 3. The doors were marked authorized personnel only, but Diego had never been good at following signs. Inside, Maya lay on a hospital bed, hooked up to monitors that beeped steadily. Dr. Okonkwo was administering the antidote through and for, her expression focused and intense. Is she going to make it? Diego asked. Dr. Okonkwo looked up sharply. You can't be in here. Is she going to make it? The doctor's expression softened fractionally. The antidote is working. Her vitals are stabilizing. With proper care, she should recover fully. She paused. But she needs to stay here for observation. At least 12 hours. She can't, Diego said. He was already disconnecting monitors, earning alarmed beeps from the machines. We have to leave. Now. She's in no condition. She's in worse condition if she stays. Diego scooped Maya into his arms, careful of the 4-line. I'll bring her back when it's safe. I promise. But right now, this is the most dangerous place she could be. He carried her out through a side exit, the hospital's alarm system starting to wail behind him. In the parking lot, he hesitated. His bike was back on the highway, the stolen Honda was crashed in the ambulance bay, and Maya needed Diego. He spun, and his heart stopped. Tanya stood there, leaning against a car, her face pale as death. Blood soaked through her shirt on the left side, spreading with each labored breath. Tanya, Jesus, Diego started toward her. No time, she gasped. Marcus is still at the warehouse. Carter has him cornered. It's a trap, Carter's going to kill him and blame it on the cartel. The few SWAT officers who survived, they're all loyal to Carter. They'll back whatever story he tells. We have to go back. No. Tanya's legs gave out, and she slid down the car's side. You have to protect Maya. Diego, listen to me. I found something in the files. Something Carter didn't know Maya had. Her real father, Ricardo Reyes, he wasn't just a cartel accountant. He was. Her eyes rolled back. Tanya. Diego caught her, Maya still cradled in his other arm. Tanya, stay with me. He was what? Ricardo Reyes was what? But she was unconscious, her pulse thready and weak under his fingers. And then Diego heard it, the rumble of engines. Multiple vehicles, moving fast. He looked up to see 3 black SUVs pulling into the hospital parking lot, blocking the exits. Doors opened, and sicarios emerged, heavily armed, their faces hidden behind masks. But these weren't the same men from the warehouse. These were fresh, rested, and they moved with the coordinated precision of a team that had worked together for years. One of them stepped forward, pulling off his mask to reveal a scarred face and cold, dead eyes. Diego Cervantes, the man said in accented English. We've been looking for you. More specifically, we've been looking for what you're holding. He nodded at Maya, still unconscious in Diego's arms. Isabella Reyes. The cartel would like her back now. She has something that belongs to us. And we're prepared to do whatever it takes to get it. The sicarios raised their weapons, red laser sights painting Diego's chest like stigmata. Maya stirred in his arms, mumbling something incomprehensible through the sedation. Tanya lay bleeding at his feet. Marcus was trapped at the warehouse, probably already dead. And Diego stood alone in a hospital parking lot, surrounded by cartel killers, holding a child who was worth $50 million to men who measured human life in cents. He looked at Maya's small, peaceful face, a little girl who'd survived horrors that would break most adults, who'd collected evidence against a monster, who'd fought for justice with crayons and determination. Some things were worth dying for. Diego shifted his weight, positioning himself between the sicarios and Maya's body, and smiled the kind of smile that came before last stands. "Come and get her," he said. And the parking lot erupted in gunfire. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 7. The first bullet meant for Diego's chest hit the Honda Civic instead, punching through the door panel with a metallic scream. Diego was already moving, diving behind the vehicle with Maya clutched to his chest, his body curled around hers like armor made of flesh and desperation. The sicarios advanced in formation, their weapons tracking, laser sights painting the night red as arterial spray. Then the night filled with the sound of salvation. Motorcycles, dozens of them, roared into the parking lot from 3 different directions. The Iron Wolves had found him, and they came with the fury of brothers who'd lost too much already. Preacher led the charge on his Road King, a shotgun braced against his hip, firing one-handed with the casual precision of a man who'd learned to shoot before he learned scripture. 2 sicarios went down, their tactical vests no match for buckshot at close range. Tiny arrived in a stolen ambulance, because of course he did, using it as a battering ram to separate the cartel's SUVs from their drivers. Metal shrieked against metal, and suddenly the sicarios' coordinated assault became chaos. "Diego." Preacher skidded his bike to a stop behind the Honda. "Get the girl out of here." "Tanya's down," Diego shouted back, gesturing to where she lay bleeding against the car. "I can't leave her." "We got her." Tiny was already there, impossibly gentle as he scooped Tanya's limp form into his massive arms. "Go. Get Maya to safety." Diego looked at Maya, still sedated, her breathing steady now that the antidote was working. Then he looked at the war zone the hospital parking lot had become, muzzle flashes lighting up the darkness, the screams of the wounded, the smell of cordite and blood. A white van screeched to a halt beside him. The door slid open to reveal 2 Iron Wolves prospects, young and terrified but present. "Get in," one of them shouted. Diego didn't hesitate. He climbed in with Maya, the van's tires squealing as they peeled out, leaving the chaos behind. But not before Diego saw, through the rear window, Tiny carrying Tanya into the hospital, Preacher and the others holding the line, buying them time with blood and bullets. Some debts could never be repaid. They took Maya to a safe house 40 miles outside Houston, a hunting cabin owned by Preacher's uncle, so far off the grid that GPS gave up trying to find it. By the time they arrived, dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of fire and ash. Diego carried Maya inside, laying her on the cabin's single bed. Her color was better now, the gray pallor replaced by something closer to healthy brown. Her breathing had deepened, steadied. The antidote was working. His phone buzzed. "Tiny. Tanya?" Diego asked without preamble. "Alive. In surgery." The bullet missed her heart by 2 inches. Tiny's voice was rough with exhaustion and relief. "Doctors say she'll make it, but Diego, she's been asking for you. Says she has to tell you something about Maya. About her real father. She keeps saying, not Santos, Santos. Does that make sense to you?" "No," Diego said slowly. "But I think it's about to." 6 hours later, Tanya arrived at the safe house in an ambulance driven by an Iron Wolves member who'd worked as a paramedic before a felony conviction made that career complicated. She was pale, bandaged, hooked to N4, but her eyes were fierce and focused. "Help me up," she said, trying to sit despite the obvious pain. "Tanya, you need to rest. I need to finish this." She gripped Diego's arm with surprising strength. "Before Carter does." "Where's Maya?" "Still sleeping. The sedation from the hospital, plus the antidote side effects. Dr. Okonkwo said she'd be out for a while." "Good. Because what I'm about to tell you changes everything." Tanya accepted water from one of the prospects, drank deeply, then began. "I've been going through the files Maya collected. All of them. There's one folder she labeled Daddy's Secret, written in crayon, hidden in the USB's deepest encryption layer. It took Tiny all night to crack it." She pulled out a tablet, showed Diego a scanned photograph. Two men in police uniforms, arms around each other's shoulders, smiling for the camera. One was Detective James Carter, maybe 15 years younger. The other was a Latino man with kind eyes and Maya's smile. "Detective Ricardo Santos," Tanya said. "Carter's partner. Officially killed in the line of duty 10 years ago, shot by cartel members during a raid gone wrong. He was posthumously awarded the Medal of Valor. There's a statue of him at HPD headquarters. Carter gave the eulogy, called him the best partner and the best man I ever knew." "But?" Diego prompted, because there was always a but. But Ricardo Santos wasn't just Carter's partner. He was the only honest cop in a precinct that Carter had already corrupted. Tanya scrolled through documents, bank records, transcripts, photographs. Santos discovered that Carter was working with the Sinaloa cartel. Not as a low-level dirty cop, but as a coordinator. Carter was the bridge between the cartel and every corrupt official in Houston, judges, DAs, politicians. He was the architect of the entire operation. Diego's stomach churned. "How much money are we talking about?" $50 million, laundered through fake arrests and seized assets over 5 years. Tanya's voice was hollow. Santos gathered evidence, recordings, documents, financial records. Everything needed to bring down not just Carter, but the entire network. He was days away from going to the FBI when Carter found out. The photograph on the tablet changed, showing a crime scene. 2 bodies, faces covered by sheets. A small apartment, blood on the walls. Carter killed Santos and his wife, Elizabeth, whom Maya remembers as her mother, because she was. Elizabeth Santos was Maya's biological mother. Ricardo was her biological father. Tanya looked up, her eyes wet. Maya isn't the daughter of a cartel informant. She's the daughter of the one cop who tried to stop Carter. The one good man in a city of corruption. Diego sat down hard, the implications crashing over him like waves. So the $50 million the cartel thinks she knows about isn't money. It's evidence. $50 million worth of documented crimes that Ricardo Santos collected before he died. And Maya knows where it's hidden. She's 10 years old, Diego protested. How could she? She was there when her father died. Tanya's voice cracked. According to the encrypted files, Ricardo knew Carter was coming for him. He had minutes to hide the evidence and tell his daughter where it was. So he used a code. A game they played together. A secret only Maya would understand. Behind them, a small voice said, "The treasure game." They turned to find Maya awake, sitting up in bed, her eyes clear for the first time since Diego had known her. "Daddy and I played it every Sunday," she said, her voice steady despite the tears streaming down her face. "He'd hide something, a toy, a piece of candy, and give me clues. Sometimes the clues were backwards. Sometimes they were riddles. Sometimes they were in Spanish." She wiped her eyes. "The night he died, the night Carter came, Daddy whispered something to me while I was hiding in the closet. I didn't understand it then. I was only 4. But I remembered it. I always remembered it." "What did he say?" Diego asked gently. "El hero siempre guarda su corazón donde todos pueden ver pero nadie puede tocar." Maya's Spanish was perfect, her father's words preserved in her memory like a prayer. The hero always keeps his heart where everyone can see but no one can touch. Tanya gasped. The statue. The memorial statue at police headquarters. Maya nodded. Daddy's statue. The one Carter made to honor him. It has a hollow base. I saw it when I went there with Carter for the dedication ceremony. He made me go, made me stand there while everyone talked about what a hero my daddy was, while the man who murdered him smiled and shook hands. She stood, wobbling slightly, and Diego moved to steady her. But she waved him off, her small frame radiating a determination that was heartbreaking and inspiring in equal measure. The evidence is inside the statue's base. Daddy told me in code, knowing that someday I'd be old enough to understand. Knowing that someday I'd be brave enough to expose Carter. Her voice hardened. And that's what I'm going to do. Today. Maya, Tanya said carefully, that statue is at HPD headquarters. The most heavily guarded police station in the state. We can't just walk in there. Why not? Maya met her eyes, and Diego saw steel in that gaze, her father's steel, forged in a child's body by years of surviving the unsurvivable. Carter wanted to break me. Wanted to torture information out of me by keeping me in that basement, by poisoning me, by making me believe I'd die like my parents. But I didn't break. I collected evidence. I survived. And now I'm going to finish what my father started. Diego's phone rang. Tiny's number. Yeah, he answered. Diego. Tiny's voice was tight with fear. We lost contact with Marcus 3 hours ago. Last transmission said he was still at the warehouse with Carter. We sent a team to extract him, but by the time they got there, the place was empty. No bodies, no evidence, nothing. It's like everyone just vanished. What about Carter? According to the news, Detective Carter is at Hermann Hospital recovering from injuries sustained when the Iron Wolves attacked him. He's already giving interviews, calling for our heads. And Diego? Tiny paused. There's a federal warrant out for our arrest. Murder of 2 police officers, attempted murder of a detective, kidnapping of a minor. They're calling us domestic terrorists. Diego closed his eyes. Marcus? No sign of him. But Diego. I got a weird transmission on Marcus's frequency about 20 minutes ago. It was corrupted, lots of static, but I could make out voices. Carter's voice. And then, a gunshot. The cabin went silent except for the static-filled recording that Tiny played over the phone. Marcus's voice, strained, "You won't get away with this." Carter's laugh, cold and confident, "I already have." Then a single gunshot, loud and final. The transmission cut out. Diego looked at Maya, at Tanya, at the bikers gathered in the safe house. His brothers, his family, all of them wanted by law enforcement, hunted by the cartel, facing down an enemy who'd already won every battle. So what do we do? One of the prospects asked. Maya stepped forward, this 10-year-old girl who'd survived torture and poison and years of living with her parents' murderer. We go to police headquarters, she said. We get my father's evidence. And we finish this. They'll arrest us the second we step foot in there, Diego said. We'll be lucky if arrest is all they do. Maybe. Maya's smile was sad and fierce. But my father didn't die so that Carter could win. And I didn't survive so I could hide. The evidence is in that statue. The evidence that will bring down everyone, Carter, the judges, the DA, all of them. Everything my father died protecting. She looked at each of them in turn. I'm going. With or without you. Because some things are worth the risk. Diego thought of Marcus, probably dead in whatever hole Carter had dumped him in. He thought of Darius, Marcus's brother, innocent and imprisoned and murdered because of Carter's greed. He thought of the 15 other innocent people rotting in cells, their lives stolen by lies. Fuck it, he said finally. Let's go rob a police station. Tanya grabbed his arm. Diego, if Marcus is alive, if that transmission was staged or faked, Carter will use him as bait. This could be a trap. Probably is, Diego agreed. But Maya's right. This is bigger than any of us now. This is about finishing what Ricardo Santos started. About justice for every life Carter destroyed. He looked at the bikers gathered in the cabin. Anyone who wants out, walk now. No judgment. But anyone who stays understands we're probably not coming back from this. Not a single person moved. All right then. Diego checked his weapons, his face set. Let's go be heroes. Outside, the sun climbed toward its zenith, and somewhere in the city, Detective James Carter smiled at a camera and told the world how dangerous the Iron Wolves Motorcycle Club was. How they needed to be stopped. How he'd do everything in his power to bring them to justice. And in the hollow base of a statue that bore his former partner's face, the partner he'd murdered, the hero he'd pretended to honor, $50 million worth of evidence waited to prove what kind of justice James Carter really believed in. The kind measured in corpses and corruption. The kind that was about to end. If you are enjoying this video, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel. Chapter 8. Houston Police Department headquarters rose against the morning sky like a monument to authority, 8 stories of concrete and glass, bristling with cameras, guarded by men with badges and guns who believed they were the good guys. Diego studied it through binoculars from a rooftop 3 blocks away, his jaw tight. This is insane. Even for us, this is fucking insane. Beside him, Maya stood wrapped in a jacket too large for her frame, her cornrows freshly braided by Tanya, her eyes fixed on the building with the intensity of someone staring down their demons. The statue is in the main lobby, she said, her voice steady. Right in the center. Everyone can see it, but no one ever really looks at it. That's what my father was counting on. How do we get to it? Tiny asked from his position at the computer setup they'd erected on the roof. Place has metal detectors, armed guards, probably facial recognition by now with our mugs plastered all over the news. Maya pulled out a piece of paper, one of her father's old case files that she'd kept hidden for 10 years. On the back was a child's drawing of the police station, with arrows and X's marking locations. Daddy drew this for me when I was little. Said it was a treasure map for our game. But he was really showing me the security gaps. Her small finger traced a route. The maintenance entrance on the east side, it's badge access only, but the reader's been broken for years. Budget cuts mean they never fixed it. And the cameras in that corridor have a blind spot every 43 seconds when they rotate. They all stared at her. You're sure about this? Diego asked gently. Maya looked up at him with eyes far older than her years. My father was a detective for 15 years before Carter killed him. He knew every weakness in that building. He taught me in case. She swallowed hard. In case something happened to him and I needed to get help. He was always preparing me. Even when I was too young to understand why. Tanya emerged from the stairwell, her phone pressed to her ear, her face pale from blood loss but determined. FBI's interested. I sent them preliminary evidence from the USB drive. Agent Sarah Chen is coordinating with DOJ. But Diego, they need the physical evidence, the hard drives, the documents. Without that, it's just digital files that Carter's lawyers will claim are fabricated. How long until they can move? Diego asked. She's assembling a task force now. Maybe 3 hours. We don't have 3 hours. Diego's phone buzzed with a text from one of the bikers watching the warehouse where Marcus had disappeared. They found Marcus. He's alive, but Carter has him at the old warehouse. And Carter's demanding a trade, Maya and the evidence location for Marcus's life. We've got until noon. Diego checked his watch. 2 hours. Maya straightened her shoulders. Then we don't wait. We go now, get the evidence, and save Marcus. All of it. Kid, you just survived being poisoned. I survived 10 years with my parents' murderer. Maya's voice was steel wrapped in silk. I can survive 2 more hours. Can you? Diego looked at Tanya, who nodded despite her injuries. He looked at Tiny, at Preacher, at the dozen iron wolves who'd gathered for this suicide mission. Split operation, he said finally. Preacher, take half the club to the warehouse. Create enough chaos that Carter thinks we're coming in force. But don't engage, just keep him distracted. And us? Tiny asked. We're going shopping at HPD headquarters. Diego's grin was savage. Time to collect what's ours. The maintenance entrance was exactly where Maya said it would be, tucked behind a dumpster in an alley that smelled of stale coffee and broken dreams. The badge reader hung loose on its hinges, its wires exposed, a bureaucratic failure that was about to become a catastrophic security breach. Diego pried the panel open while Tiny worked his magic on the wiring. Cameras rotate in 3, 2, 1. They slipped inside, Maya between them, moving through corridors that hummed with fluorescent lights and the ambient noise of a police station at work, phones ringing, voices echoing, the casual sounds of people who had no idea their world was about to implode. Maya guided them with the confidence of someone walking through a remembered dream. Left at the water fountain. Right past the evidence room. Down the stairs that led to the main lobby. They paused at a door marked authorized personnel only. Beyond it was the lobby, open, public, filled with civilians and cops. Okay, Diego breathed. This is where it gets tricky. Maya pulled off the oversized jacket, revealing a neat dress and the kind of backpack any kid might carry. She smoothed her cornrows and took a breath that made her look impossibly small and impossibly brave. I'll walk out there. Just another kid waiting for her parent. Nobody looks at kids, my father taught me that. You follow after 30 seconds, pretend you're civilians filing a report. She met Diego's eyes. The statue is in the center of the lobby. I need 3 minutes once I reach it. Maya, Tanya started. 3 minutes, Maya repeated. Then we run. Together. She didn't wait for permission. She pushed through the door and walked into the lobby with the purposeful stride of a child who'd learned to be invisible. Diego counted to 30, each second an eternity, then followed with Tanya and Tiny, the 3 of them dressed in civilian clothes, their weapons concealed, their faces arranged in expressions of civic boredom. The lobby was exactly as Maya had described it. Marble floors, high ceilings, and in the center, a bronze statue of Detective Ricardo Santos. He stood tall in his uniform, one hand on his badge, his face cast in the serious expression of a man sworn to protect and serve. The plaque at the base read, "In memory of Detective Ricardo Santos. A true hero. Never forgotten." Maya stood before it, so small next to the statue of her father that Diego's chest ached. She knelt, her hands running along the base's marble exterior, searching. Then she found something, a hidden seam, cleverly disguised in the decorative scrollwork. She pressed, twisted, and a panel clicked open. Inside the hollow base was a metal box, sealed and labeled in Ricardo Santos's handwriting, "For Isabella. When you're ready." Maya pulled it out with hands that trembled, clutching it to her chest like the sacred thing it was. Got it, she whispered into the small microphone Diego had given her. Then move, Diego said. Now. But Maya didn't move. She stood there, staring at her father's statue, tears streaming down her face. Daddy, she whispered. I'm sorry it took so long. I'm sorry I was scared. But I'm ready now. I'm ready to finish it. Maya, we have to go, Tanya urged. An alarm shrieked through the building. Security breach, main lobby, a voice announced over the intercom. All units respond. Doors burst open. Officers poured in, weapons drawn. And standing among them, somehow, impossibly, Detective James Carter. He was supposed to be in a hospital bed. Instead, he stood in full uniform, a bandage visible under his collar, his smile triumphant and terrible. Hello, Isabella, he said softly. Did you really think I wouldn't know? I've had 10 years to study your father's mind. To understand how he thought. The statue was the first place I checked after you ran. He gestured, and officers surrounded them. But I needed you to come here. Needed you to expose yourself, to bring your biker friends into my house. Diego's hand moved toward his concealed weapon. Don't, Carter said pleasantly. You're surrounded by 40 armed officers. You'd be dead before you cleared leather. Now, the box. Give it to me, Isabella. Maya held it tighter. My name is Maya. My real name. The name my father gave me before you murdered him. Your father was a fool who chose the wrong side. Carter took a step forward. And you're just like him, noble, stupid, and ultimately ineffective. Give me the box, or I give the order to detonate. Detonate what? Tanya demanded. Carter pulled out a phone, showed them the screen. It displayed a list of locations with countdown timers: St. Mary's Orphanage, Jefferson Elementary School, Hermann Hospital Children's Ward. Bombs, Carter said simply. Placed by associates over the past week. Enough explosives to bring down buildings. Hundreds of children, all waiting to die because you couldn't leave well enough alone. He met Maya's eyes. So here's the choice, little girl. Give me the box and come with me. Let me disappear with the evidence. Or I press this button, and you get to watch hundreds of children die on live news. Tick-tock. The lobby had gone silent. Even the officers looked uncertain, horrified. Maya looked at the box in her hands. Then at Carter. Then at the statue of her father. My father taught me something, she said quietly. He said the bad guys always want you to be afraid. They use fear as a weapon because it's easier than fighting fair. But fear only works if you let it. She opened the box. Inside were hard drives, documents, and a small tablet with a USB port. He also taught me about backup plans. Maya pulled out the tablet, inserted a hard drive. Everything in this box is already uploaded to the cloud. Encrypted, but with a dead man's switch. If I don't enter a code every 12 hours, it automatically sends to every news outlet, every federal agency, every journalist in the country. Carter's face went white. You're bluffing. Am I? Maya's finger hovered over the tablet's screen. Want to find out? Because I can broadcast this right now. Live stream it to social media. Your corruption network, your cartel connections, every crime you've committed, available to the world in 60 seconds. The bombs are fake. Marcus's voice echoed through the lobby. Everyone turned to see him emerging from a side corridor, battered and bloody but alive, flanked by Preacher and a dozen iron wolves. In his hand was a detonator, Carter's detonator. Found this at the warehouse, Marcus said, tossing it to the ground. Tiny ran the specs. It's a prop. Movie quality, but completely non-functional. There are no bombs, Carter. Just your last desperate bluff. Carter's expression flickered, rage, fear, calculation. Then he lunged for Maya. Marcus was faster. He crossed the lobby in 3 strides and hit Carter with all the fury of a man who'd lost his brother, who'd been framed and hunted, who'd watched a child suffer for sins she never committed. They went down in a tangle, fists flying. Carter fought dirty, going for eyes, throat, groin. But Marcus fought with purpose, each blow measured and devastating. This is for Darius, Marcus said, landing a punch that broke Carter's nose. For Maya. Another punch. For every innocent person you destroyed. A final hit, and Carter went limp. The lobby doors burst open. Federal agents in tactical gear flooded in, led by a Chinese-American woman with FBI credentials and the kind of presence that made even armed police officers step aside. Detective Carter, Agent Chin said, you're under arrest for murder, corruption, racketeering, and about 50 other charges we'll figure out while you're in custody. Officers, drop your weapons. This building is now under federal jurisdiction. The HPD officers looked at each other, at Carter's broken form, at the evidence Maya held. One by one, they lowered their guns. 3 months later. The cemetery was quiet in the way that only places of the dead can be, peaceful, eternal, removed from the chaos of the living world. Maya stood before 2 headstones, freshly cleaned, with flowers she'd placed herself. Detective Ricardo Santos and Elizabeth Santos. Her real parents. The heroes who died protecting her and the truth. "I did it, Daddy," she whispered. "I finished what you started." Behind her, Marcus and Tanya waited at a respectful distance. Around them, the Iron Wolves stood sentinel, a found family forged in fire and blood. The scandal had been everything they'd hoped for and worse than they'd imagined. Carter's evidence had brought down 37 officials across 4 states, judges, prosecutors, police chiefs, politicians. The conspiracy had spread like cancer, and cutting it out had been brutal. 15 innocent people had been exonerated, their convictions overturned. Darius Johnson's name had been cleared posthumously, his death ruled a homicide orchestrated by Carter to silence a potential appeal. Carter himself awaited trial in federal custody, facing charges that would keep him imprisoned for lifetimes. His lawyers had already started plea negotiations. No one expected him to ever breathe free air again. Maya had testified before a grand jury, her voice steady as she recounted 10 years of horror. The prosecutor had cried. The jury had cried. But Maya hadn't. She'd simply told the truth, the gift her father had died to protect. "What happens now?" Maya asked, turning to Marcus. He knelt beside her, this man who'd become something between a guardian and a father, and smiled with a warmth that had been missing from his face for years. "Now," he said gently. "Now you get to be a kid. You get to go to school, make friends, do homework, complain about chores. All the normal things you should have been doing all along." "And you?" Maya asked. "What will you do?" Marcus looked at Tanya, who'd officially become Maya's foster mother, at Diego and the others who'd risked everything for a child they barely knew. "We'll make sure no one ever hurts you again," he said. "We'll be your family. Not perfect, definitely not conventional, but family all the same." Maya considered this, then nodded. She picked up her pink backpack, the same one she'd carried that desperate night at the gas station, now empty of its dark secrets, just a child's bag again. "Okay," she said simply. "Let's go home." They walked back to the motorcycles waiting in the cemetery parking lot. The Iron Wolves mounted up, engines rumbling to life. Maya climbed onto the back of Marcus's Harley, wrapping her arms around his waist, her backpack secured safely. As they rode into the sunset, past the city that had tried to break them, through streets they'd bled to protect, Maya felt something she hadn't felt in 10 years. Hope. The kind that came after storms, after darkness, after surviving things that should have destroyed you. The kind that said maybe, just maybe, the bad guys didn't always win. And sometimes, if you were brave enough, loud enough, and refused to give up even when the whole world told you to, justice wasn't just a word carved on statues. It was something real. Something worth fighting for. Something that rode on the back of a Harley, wrapped in leather and love, heading toward a future where monsters stayed in cages and little girls got to be little girls. The backpack bounced against the seat, empty now but somehow lighter than it had ever been when full. And Isabella Maya Reyes, daughter of heroes, survivor of monsters, keeper of truths, smiled as the wind whipped through her cornrows and the family she'd found roared down the highway toward whatever came next. Together. Always together. I know you enjoyed this video. Do well to hit the like button and subscribe to this channel. Share your thoughts in the comments section below and don't forget to share this video to family and friends. The end.